Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, where it's all about creating the life you want, the business you want, and making a real difference. Join us in unlocking the code to true success. And now your host, Tony Caliendo, Master Coach with Rethink Coaching.
Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, episode number 130. I'm Tony Caliendo, Executive Coach here at Rethink Coaching. And as always, I want to welcome you and thank you for sharing your time with me. Time truly is our greatest resource, and the fact that you're willing to share your time with me truly does mean a great deal. Today, I want to talk about something that I don't think is talked about enough in the business world, and that's gut instinct. And I think we all have it. In fact, I believe that to be true. In my world, I believe we all have that. However, I think because of the high-paced world that we live in, we're often silencing that gut. And that one thing can make the difference between making a decision between doing the right more or falling prey to making a decision out of urgency. And I want to talk about that today with you. I know for me in my life, I have a pretty decent gut instinct. I can usually tell when something feels off, and I've learned at this stage of life to pause. Yet, I've also been victim, if you will, to ignoring it or silencing it. And ultimately, when something does not go quite as I hoped it would or I predicted that it would, I realized it was because I did not allow my gut instinct to come through. So we're going to talk about that today in relationship to business and life. And it is not one of those things I was ever taught in business school. However, I can tell you it is one of the things that has served me well moving forward in the companies that I have the privilege of running. So the number one thing is to acknowledge and recognize that that gut you hear, that voice you hear, it has actually two voices. And not all of the intuition that we have or that gut message we have is coming from a place of wisdom. I think your gut holds a lot of past experiences, emotional memories, pattern recognition within it. And while that is powerful, and it really is, it also means that your gut can speak from two really different places. So one voice I like to say of your gut is coming at us from protective wisdom. The other is coming at us from protective conditioning. And I want to talk about those two things for a second. I believe that protective wisdom, that one voice of your gut, is a quiet signal that something feels off. It's just that little nudge. It's just that moment of saying something is off and it's not aligned correctly. It's that moment you take a pause and start to think. The other voice that I believe our gut holds with us is that protective conditioning. It's built from our past failures, our fears, our past rejections. And so both of those can be appearing at the same time. And often one overrides the other. What I know to be true is, as a high performer, I tend to lump them together. I don't take enough time to separate the two things and ask, is this protective wisdom or is this protective conditioning? So it's one of the things that I teach in Less Over More is that it requires refinement. It requires us actually taking a moment to pay attention to which one of our gut voices is talking to us. One of the fastest ways to tell the difference between the two is by noticing the emotional texture of the signal. And what I mean by that is if it's coming from a place of fear, if it's coming from a place of remembering when you did something similar and failed, it's that protective conditioning. Yet if it just feels off for the sake of feeling off and there's not a whole lot of emotion attached to it, that's that protective wisdom voice that's coming through. Number two thing to realize when we're dealing with our gut instinct is that alignment will feel different than urgency. So many times this comes up in our world because we're in a place of making a decision and we feel like we have to make that decision under the gun in a space of urgency versus clarity. And that can cause some issues for us because when fear speaks, it tends to feel tight, fast, and pressurized. It says, decide now, move now, fix this now. This is that part that I was referring to earlier where I said we live in a space or in a world of fast moving targets. fast moving data, where we're processing data at a really, really high pace. And I know for myself, when I make a decision that's having to be made quicker than I would like to make it, it really is what can impact success or not success in something that I do. When I'm making a decision from urgency, from hurry up, make the decision, you might miss the opportunity, alignment rarely shows up in that instance. Alignment can help you be calm and clear. Alignment does a lot for you. There's a steadiness to it. There's this part of you, even when the decision is uncomfortable, when it's aligning with your gut, when it's aligning with your core value, when it is aligning and not making you feel off, there's a grounded quality to that that is an undertone that helps us make really great decisions. Many leaders are so used to operating in a space of urgency, they mistake adrenaline rush for clarity. The right move or the right decision rarely comes from a place of panic or urgency. Now, there are times you've got to make a quick decision. If there's somebody is in trouble, if you see something that is going to happen and be damaging and you need to stop it immediately, yes, we will make a decision quickly. Yet, if we can lower our internal pressure so you can take a minute to breathe, I always say just take a step back, take a step and relax for a moment and allow clarity to surface. Get out of that pressure cooker environment. And that can help you, I think, the most in either listening to that gut, rationalizing what's happening, making a decision if it's the right instinct that you've got going on. That's when I believe we can make the best decisions, when we reduce the pressure. So keep that in mind when you're in a decision of having to make a quick decision. Ask yourself, do I really have to make this right now? I know for me, 95% of the decisions I make do not have to be made on the fly. And it's okay to tell someone, give me a minute and I'll get back to you. You know what? Let me think about that. I'll get back to you within the hour. Let me process this. I'll get back to you by start of day tomorrow. Do whatever you need to do to create that space of calm. Number 3, know that sometimes your gut is protecting your future. And I love thinking that, because I do think when we allow for the space for our gut instinct, our intuition to show up, it really can be a great guide as we move forward. Intuition can often be a boundary signal. Intuition can be that thing that tells you, hey, something might look great on paper, but internally it feels off. You might say, hey, this partnership checks every box. This opportunity increases my exposure and my volume. The room I get to be in and do this presentation or speak to is very impressive. So on paper, it looks great. Yet there's something in you that's causing hesitation. A lot of us will override that signal because we've been taught or been rewarded with pushing through discomfort. How many times have you heard, and I've said it too, our greatest growth happens when we're uncomfortable. Yet I think that there is a difference of ignoring that, hey, there's this signal that something feels off, regardless of logically what's happening on paper, something is feeling off. This feeling off or this hesitation is wisdom doing its job. It's your gut doing its job. It's saying, hey, pause for a second, take a beat, take a moment to really think about this. It's not always easy to do that because you want to go with what makes the most sense logically. And I will tell you personally, I had this experience right before we launched Rethink Coaching. The partnership that we were involved in, one of the partnerships we were involved in on paper, made brilliant sense, made 1000% brilliant sense. However, my gut was screaming to take a moment to really rethink this, to assess the risk that was about to happen, that this was the thing that could change the trajectory of my financial situation and my future as a coach. Yet I ignored it, even though it was really jumping up and down, doing its best to get my attention. And what's funny in a way, not funny, haha, but what's kind of funny about this is when it was all said and done and we walked away from the partnership and we ended it fairly abruptly, Reagan and I sat and talked about it. And he said, you know what? My gut was telling me not to do it. And I ignored it. I wish I would have talked about a certain instance that happened when he was with these people. That should have been the signal that to stop, to add that to the list of all of the boxes we were checking, add that one thing to the list, and it would have been on the other side of the column of don't do it. So pay attention, even if something makes 100% sense on paper, yet there's something in you that's saying, oof, it's not fear. It's not this afraid of a new opportunity, but there's something that really feels off. I truly wish I would have paid attention. I truly do. I was able to recover quickly. We were able to recover quickly and move forward. And we were able to go back to some of the people that we hurt through that decision and make things right. So it was a huge lesson. And from that point forward, Reagan and I have a commitment with each other when it comes to personal or business. If one of us is having a gut check moment, that we honor it, that we just step back and say, okay, it's great that this is all on paper, yet something's off. Let's figure out what it is. It's tempting to override intuition because the logic, the paper sounds so freaking amazing. And you're so excited about that opportunity that it could bring. 9 times out of 10, if something is feeling off, please just pause and take a moment to think about it. Number 4 that I want you to consider, especially as a high performer, entrepreneur, executive leader, whichever role you have in life and business, is that many times we override our intuition. The story I just shared with you, I overrode it. I completely dismissed it, pushed it aside. And part of it was I just didn't want to say no to something I'd already said yes to when I wished that I would have. And know this, that overriding intuition usually does not serve you. And it can be one of the things that dulls your discernment, your ability to really sit with something and make the right decision. We're trained to move fast paced, push through resistance, and execute. I said it earlier. A lot of times I look at, I'm uncomfortable. And the discomfort is just because I'm about to hit a growth spurt. And I will push through because that's just how I'm conditioned as a leader. However, taking a moment to have discernment is really, really important. Our identity sometimes as a leader is built around being able to make great decisions. Our identity as a leader is in the ability to be nimble and quick in our decision making. A lot of times that works out really, really well for us. Sometimes it does not. The times that it doesn't is when your internal signal is saying pause or no, and you interpret it as a weakness versus a signal from my gut that I need to pay attention. Remember, protective wisdom or productive conditioning. Protective conditioning can come from fear, can come from past failures, can come from past rejection. However, wisdom is that moment that is just telling you no, not based on past failures. It's just telling you no. So do not think of it as a weakness if you say, you know what, my gut's telling me to take a pause for a moment, and I'm going to honor that. I'm going to honor it, and I'm going to take a step back because we are bombarded with constant input, constant opportunity. Talked about that in the last podcast, and constant pressure to always be growing, to always be moving forward towards our next goal or our next benchmark. And in these moments where we choose to ignore that wisdom, when we choose to ignore that intuition, a lot of times it's happening just because of being in a place of constant input, constant opportunity, constant pressure. And it stifles that voice inside. It crowds it out. It crowds out the space for your intuition to have a seat at the table. And I will tell you, my intuition has been one of the best business partners that I have had moving forward. So think about this. If you take a moment to make decisions and lean into your intuition and get out of being overcommitted, overscheduled, overextended, and you get back into alignment, there will be a space at the table for your gut instincts to show up. And it can be one of the best partners that you have, and it's within you. It's just we tend to stifle it or block it out. Number 5 thing to think about when it comes to gut instinct, intuition, wisdom, whatever you want to refer to it as, is that subtraction sharpens intuition. A noisy life, a noisy environment produces noisy intuition. It goes back to you're crowding it out. You're not making the space for it. You're shouting louder than your intuition is able to. So if your calendar is packed and you don't have a moment, if your mind is just overstimulated by the data that we receive, I think the latest stat I saw showed that we get about 1.2 billion bits of data coming our way per second, and we can only process 128. So think about that for a minute. You're constantly bathed in data. You're constantly in a space of overstimulation, and you're only able to grab a small fraction of the data that's coming your way. In those moments, your gut signal gets distorted. It not only gets silenced, it will get distorted. So clarity is not just a mindset issue, it's an environment issue. This is why I have said this over and over, that it's really important that you have white space in your calendar, meaning blank space, thinking time, time to process, time to recalibrate is really, really important, because a noisy life produces noisy intuition. When you have the chance, if you're a leader or not, when you have the chance to reduce unnecessary commitments, the constant digital input, the decision fatigue, and the mental clutter, something really powerful happens. Your internal guidance, your gut, your intuition, your instinct gets sharper. I think it's always there. I'm not sure that we always honor it. Keep in mind, noisy environment, noisy intuition. It's going to get misaligned. The constant digital input, I think, is our biggest challenge in our current space that we live in. It's funny, the other night, for whatever reason, my phone was running out of juice about 6:00 at night. And I made a decision. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go put it away. And I could have kept it with me just in case a text came in, or just in case a really cool something came through Instagram or whatever. But I made a decision. I went and I put the phone in my office, not in the bedroom where I normally keep it charging. I put it in the office, and I reduced that noise, and I left it in my office until the next morning after I was done journaling. And I will tell you, reducing that digital input had a bigger impact on me than I ever thought I would. Here it was, just a simple moment of your phone's about to die. And it wasn't. It was about 20%. So it would have lasted until I went to bed. However, I made a decision to put it away. I had one of the best nights. We actually had great conversation. I actually could tell you what was happening on the show that we were watching for the moment. I could pick up a book and read it and create the space for good things to happen. And it really gave me great clarity on what I was feeling inside in that moment at the end of a really great day. So subtraction is not about doing less for the sake of less. It's about reducing those things that are silencing your intuition, that are misaligning your intuition, that are not allowing you to sharpen that intuition. Remember, and I do believe this, your intuition is one of the best board members you can have sitting at the table with you. Number 6 thing is, I talk a lot about this, right? And I want to share with you the discernment filter that I use when I'm looking at, is it really, I need to pay attention to my gut, yes or no? Is this worthy of giving attention to? And this is a tool that I use. Before I act on my gut, which has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger since that incident happened now nearly 7 years ago. In fact, it was 7 years ago in February. Since that happened, and I've honored my gut more and more and more, and I've given it the space and the seat at the table, I have a moment to ask myself, is the signal calm or emotionally charged? So is my gut reaction based on a previous failure, a previous rejection, a previous disappointment? What is the signal? Or is it a signal to take a moment and be calm and back up and reassess. What is the signal? Is this gut instinct, intuition moment speaking to me as a way to protect my growth or to protect my comfort? This is where we can make a decision. Is it really there protecting us, right? Is it that voice that we want to listen to, voice of wisdom, or is it the voice of protective conditioning? And the number 3 thing is, after the initial emotion settles, does it still feel true? Gosh, I wish I would have had these filters in place when I was making such a significant decision in my coaching career. Because after the initial emotion of the fear, the anxiety of what was happening and me ignoring it, if I would have allowed that emotion to settle, I do believe Reagan and I would have come to a different decision and it would have had a very different outcome. So use those questions or use those filters when you get that gut hit, when you get that signal from inside. Use that filter and just walk through it. It will help you identify if we're doing the right thing. This is part of, is my gut telling me to stop this because it's the wrong more? Is my gut saying you are so out of alignment with what you agreed to do that you're going to say yes to the wrong more and you're going to block out the right more? Remember, if you create space for the wrong more, you've taken away space for the right more. And we've talked about that. You'll make less impulsive and you'll make more intentional responses when you take a moment and take a beat and ask yourself those really, really important questions. I believe some people are better at honoring their gut than others. And I've also seen amazing leaders lead through their gut instinct. I believe there is a huge value to this. And that's why I say, are you doing what's necessary to create space at the table for your gut, your intuition to show up and participate with you in your growth options and your decisions as to what is the right more versus the wrong more? Am I saying this just because it's an opportunity, or am I saying yes to this because it's yes to the right more? When my gut is off, I now pause and I pay attention and I sit with it and I remove the emotion and I weigh it out and I work through it. I would say 60% of the time my gut's right in stopping me from doing something. The other time, it's about right, and I need to make some tweaks to the logic. I need to make some tweaks to the opportunity to make it align, or to say with clarity, no. Invite your gut to join you again, team. I think some of us have put it away, or maybe thought it's woo-woo, or it doesn't have a place in business. But I will tell you this, it has a great place in business. All right, team, go make it a great week. If you need me, you know how to find me. We'll talk to you soon. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you must come check out the Mindset Architect Group Coaching Program. It's our monthly program where we explore the power of your mindset, help you identify what you truly want in business and life, and then help you reach those goals. Come check us out at rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. That's rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. We'll see you there.